To something else right now. Australia's gender pay gap is leaving women with substantially less superannuation than men. And new research shows it's got nothing to do with having a family. We've asked Georgie to present this story because she brings a unique female perspective and because she's slightly cheaper.
If you think women earn less because we work less or we spend more time out of the workforce, think again. We earn less than men because we get paid less than men. And new figures show when we retire, we end up with far less super than men do. Women in the Australian workforce earn on average $250 less per week than men. That's partly because more women work part-time, partly because we're overrepresented in low-paying industries, and partly because we do the lion's share of child rearing.
Women are disadvantaged when they take time off to have children, to care for their children, to work part-time.
But a big part of the pay gap is straight-up discrimination. Even in a one-to-one comparison, chicks are getting dudded. Full-time jobs in sales, admin, labour and management pay about 25% less if you happen to have ovaries. A woman who works full-time with no interruptions will retire with 200 grand less than the average man. For those who do end up caring for kids or elderly parents, that can balloon to as much as $600,000.
Our research shows that even when women don't have children and work right through their lives, that in retirement they still have less superannuation earnings than men, and that's primarily because of the gender pay gap.
But if more women than men take on the role of primary carer, isn't that a choice? Perhaps, but it's a choice shaped by deeply ingrained social and economic factors, not to mention biology.
We just accept this major inequality and say, well, you know, that's because women choose to have babies.
So next time you hear the gender gap is because of women's choices, ask yourself this: would you choose to be a woman in the workplace? Elizabeth Broderick is Australia's Sex Discrimination Commissioner. Liz, how can it be that Charlie and I could apply for exactly the same job in exactly the same company and get paid differently?
I know, it's depressing. I think it comes about because there's a lack of transparency. Often women at the same level don't know what it is that men are being paid at that level, so that's one aspect. And it's interesting, in Portugal, for 1 month of a year, companies have to publish in their reception the pay rates of men and women at the same level, so that's an idea. But the other thing, I think, is that historically we undervalue the skills that women have, even when they're doing the same work as men.
Obviously a big part of this is culture, and to change that takes diligence and time, but is there something structural that we can do? Can we enforce more transparency? Can we change superannuation rules? Can we change the workplace?
Look, I think what we could do around superannuation rewards people who work full-time across a 25 to 30-year period, and that's ordinarily men who do that. So what other countries are doing is they're looking at supplementing superannuation through what they call a caring credit scheme, and that is to reward women for the unpaid caring work they do, so that the government would make notional credits into a superannuation-like account when women, or men indeed, step out of paid work to either care for children or indeed care for their parents as well, because that's where all our caring responsibilities are growing. So that would be one really significant structural change which would make a difference.
Liz, what about individual solutions? You know, women who are watching tonight at home, what can they do to try and get themselves a better deal?
You're almost caught between a rock and a hard place, because the fact is you go in and you negotiate like a man and it's, oh my God, she's so aggressive. But what I say to women is to really do the research to know what it is that, what the market value of a particular role is. That'd be one thing. But the other thing is, we talented women across this country, and there's so many, we should go to organisations which actually do a gender pay audit. And there are many organisations that are starting to do that. They're looking at pay recommendations from a gender perspective, and they're identifying where there is a mismatch and then actually doing something about it. So I think smart organisations need to do that more, and smart women need to say, well, that's where I want to work.
On behalf of all women, thank you so much for blazing this trail to equality. We appreciate your time.
Thanks very much.
I totally agree with what Liz is saying there. Don't ever undervalue yourself if you are a female out there. I say you push, push, push for gender equality. If a company's got something to hide, when you need to push that you see why that male is getting paid more for you, and we shouldn't be
undervalued, and we also shouldn't be disadvantaged to take time off to raise a family.
Well, it has so many implications for other aspects of equality in society, but gosh, imagine if we did value unpaid work in the home, what that would do to GDP. But yeah, just a thought for you. You know, mums out there.
Absolutely. George, I think if you want to chat about you and Charlie's pay, I think that's an off-air discussion now. Sure.
And I mean, I've been here since the start. We're going to take a break. Back in a minute.